Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at another Bachmann, Thomas and Friends character in narrow gauge. A few months ago I looked at Bachmann's 009 Talaclin Fletcher Jennings 042 locomotive, which was very pretty and everything, but overall I was quite disappointed by it. As a supposedly super detailed, accurate, realistic model, I didn't think it was very good. But of course this locomotive was not designed to be a realistic Fletcher Jennings 042 tank engine. It was designed to be this Skarloey from Thomas and Friends. And Bachmann just reused the moulding from this locomotive to create the real-life engine, because presumably the two were quite similar. And do you know what? For a Thomas and Friends engine, that loco was quite detailed. So as much as I don't think it made a particularly good, serious, realistic model, I think it probably will make for quite an impressive Thomas and Friends model. And I've looked at one of these before and it was fairly good. That was Rheneas, I believe, yellow Rheneas. Just to show how un-mainstream I am, I suppose. Anyway, if you're interested in Rheneas, I'll pop the review up there. In terms of Skarloey though, and price, hold on to your hats. This is where things get rocky. So in the UK, Bachmann's RRP for this loco is £140.75, which is a crazy amount of money, but it's about a tenner less than the Fletcher Jennings version, which cost £149.25 RRP. Anyway, at the retailers for Skarloey, we're talking about £120, £119.63, something like that, which is obviously still a lot of money for a loco that is this big. I mean, I could eat this thing in one bite if I wanted to. Obviously, I don't want to, and don't try that at home, but either way, it's a lot of money for something like this. However, if you buy it from Tootly Thomas, who import it from the States and then sell it here in the UK, you can get it for £110. Still a lot of money, but it saves a tenner. So if you want a tip and you're in the UK, check out Tootly Thomas. You can get these at a better price. Does this model make a better Thomas and Friends loco than it did a super realistic Talaclin loco in real life? Well, let's find out. Okay, Skarloey then, and quite a few people, especially on the Rheneas video, asked if I could look at Skarloey. So I do listen to what people ask for. Here he is. Let's see what he's like. So if I show you the back of the box, you can see some of the other models in this range. And if there's anything on here that you'd like to see me review, please do comment down below and I'll see what I can do, because generally I do really enjoy these lovely narrow gauge locos. But anyway, I think it's time to get Skarloey out now. So let's open up, see what it's like, see if there's any differences between him and the Talaclin loco I looked at before. Obviously, he's painted differently and he's got a face in this reincarnation, but are there other differences? We shall see. Anyway, we've got a bit of an instruction leaf here, which is interesting, so let's look at that. So there you have it, exploded diagram. This is, of course, for Skarloey, and for some reason, I don't know why they've replaced his face with that. Looks like a push button. That's really weird, isn't it? Anyway, you can see the mechanism. There's the motor and the flywheel, as we saw before. All very generic, as you can see, and that's all that tells us. Then we've got just the warranty thing, and oh, goodness me, what's this? In a delightfully khaki colour, we have a full colour combined Bachmann and Williams catalogue over 300 pages digest size. Okay, so if you send them $13 and fill out this form, you can actually get a nice little book to read. It's a two-pocket plunder. It's a two-pocket plunder. Out of sight, out of mind. Ah, yeah. Moving on, let's have a look at Skarloey himself then. I don't believe I've ever seen Skarloey in the flesh until now, and again, you know, it's easy. Well, I was going to say, for a Thomas toy, I always say that. They're not really toys, are they? Because of how crazily expensive they are. But either way, for something, you know, from a kid's TV show, let's say, this is very, very beautifully painted. I mean, look at all the lining and such. Yeah, they do a great job on the paintwork, don't they, old Bachmann? Anyway, let's lift this up. Oh yeah, I forgot about how heavy this loco was, actually. Seriously heavy for a little narrow gauge loco. And the reason is there's a lot of metal on board. I would say he is mostly die-cast. So the saddle tank there, that's made of metal, the side of the coal bunker, etc., all metal. Even the smoke box and the chimney, all made of metal. So it is a good quality loco where the build is concerned. The only parts that seem to be plastic are the sort of upper cab and the rear of the cab, and also his face, of course. And there is a look at his face. I'm not dead familiar with Skarloey from TV, so you'll have to comment down below and let me know what you think about the face. Is that a good face? From what I've seen, which I admit is limited, I would have said that is quite a good face. But you guys are more expert on that than me, so yeah, I'd like to know what you think on that. But anyway, very, very good. He looks great. He seems to be very well painted, like I say. We'll take a much closer look in just a second. I'll show you exactly what he's got. But for now, a little bit of background on Skarloey. Skarloey is a very old narrow gauge engine based on a real-life engine, Talaclin, as found on the Talaclin Railway. In fact, many of the stories the Reverend W. Awdry wrote about were based on real events on the Talaclin Railway, so maybe some of the stuff Skarloey got up to really happened in real life at some point. He's one of the oldest engines on the island of Sodor, and with all of that age comes great wisdom. And he's extremely hard-working. Right from his first appearance, he proved that he was not an engine to give up or to let people down easily. Once he even ran with a broken spring, really limping along, just to make sure his passengers got back home safely. He gets on very well with the other engines, and he always treats them kindly, as much as he can be firm with them at times as well. So there he is then, Skarloey up close and personal, and as I suspected, this is surprisingly good for a Bachmann, Thomas & Friends model. The detail and the quality, for that matter, is definitely above and beyond what we've seen in the past in this range. It is, however, almost identical to the Talaclin loco that I looked at in the past. I did wonder if maybe they adapted the tooling, if maybe they changed aspects of the model to make the more realistic loco, but no, they didn't. The two are exactly the same. They weigh the same, 64 grams exactly. Don't get me wrong, that's fantastic, and these are very, very heavy for their size, but they're the same in that regard. In fact, the only real difference is the front end, the smoke box. So here is Skarloey's face, which I do think looks pretty good. I've looked at photos of Skarloey from the show and whatnot. Yeah, that's pretty good, I would say. Again, I'm not an expert, do let me know what you think, but I think that's fine. Obviously, for the realistic release, Talaclin, they tooled up a smoke box door, which also had a separate lamp fitted onto it as well. Obviously, Skarloey doesn't have the lamp. Apart from that though, physically, the two locos are exactly the same. The only differences are in the paint job. And Skarloey's paint job is actually excellent. We've still got this beautiful kind of grey coloured lining, just as it appears in the show, on his tanks and on the side of the coal bunker and the cab and such. And we've got the Skarloey nameplate on here, which is just printed on. That's not a separate part. Apart from things like that though, the paint job is more simplified than it is on the Talaclin loco. For instance, we don't have this golden coloured band picked out on Skarloey here. Sometimes in the show, Skarloey did have that band painted, but I think Skarloey's appearance has changed over the years from how he looked in the model series to the first CGI series, and then later on in the CGI series he changed a little bit. So yeah, I think there are some differences that can be explained by that. Similarly, this pipework on the side of his smoke box has not been painted. That was painted on Talaclin, but again, that is correct for Skarloey. In terms of other paintwork then, we've got the lining on the cylinders, which has been done very, very nicely. We've got the pipework beneath his coal bunkers, which has been picked out. This is just a part of the moulding, and you can see the pink on the side of it there, which doesn't look very good, really. But yeah, if you look at it exactly from side on, yeah, it looks all right, I would say. The whistle is actually painted. I think with Rheneas's whistle that was just self-coloured, it was just the colour of the plastic. This is actually painted. Again, sometimes Skarloey appears with this bottom section of the whistle painted black. Sometimes the whole thing is gold or, well, brass coloured, I guess. Bachmann have gone for fully brass coloured, of course. The cab windows, the window frames, those have been painted. As you can see, weirdly though, these windows don't go all the way through, they're filled in on the inside. And yeah, there is no cab detail in Skarloey, which was awful on the Talaclin model, but maybe it makes a little bit more sense for the Thomas and Friends character. Again, I'm not an expert, so do you ever see inside Skarloey's cab in the show? Is it just blank like this, or is there some detail? Maybe that is realistic for Skarloey. It wasn't realistic for Talaclin though. And then the windows on the back, these are actually see-through, which is better. And there's quite a bit of detail on the back here. We've got the lamp, which is actually separately fitted and separately painted. His little moulded lamp brackets, these are moulded on but painted. And here's his number plate with the number 1 on it. This is just a part of the moulding. It's not a separate plate or anything, but it is printed onto a raised section of the moulding, so it's not perfectly flat. That makes it look a little bit more realistic. A few other details then. Here are the coal loads. Yep, they look pretty good. Nice realistic coal, not removable, of course. And one thing that is a little bit rubbish is this simple moulded handrail. You know, it's okay on a cheap toy, but on a more expensive premium model, a separately fitted wire handrail would have looked a lot better, I think, than just this line, which is moulded into the saddle tank and then just painted. Yeah, I think Rheneas did that a little bit better. Here are his wheels. We've got the rear wheels there, made of metal, of course, and then we've got the driving wheels. The rear metal wheels, though, are not sprung, and it looks as though they're taking quite a lot of the loco's weight. Are those second driving wheels actually resting on the track there? I don't think they are. I suspected that with the Talaclin, but you can really see it here on this raised track. But again, I guess that is to make sure there is actually some weight on these rear wheels so that they don't derail. And yeah, if this is anything like Talaclin, the performance will be good. Less good is this plastic crosshead here and the piston. Why these are cheap looking plastic, I don't know, but yeah, not keen on that. Again, this is not really a toy at these prices. I would have expected better quality than that, and the quality is better elsewhere. It's just things like that that let it down a little bit. Fairly chunky plastic buffers, as you can see, just painted black, and we've got very detailed buffer beams, complete with the coupling hooks painted black. And then in model form, we've got your standard narrow gauge couplings here, which were all pre-fitted and ready to go. So hopefully that's a good enough look at Skarloey for you. Yeah, for a Thomas and Friends loco, this is very, very detailed, possibly one of the most detailed ones. But anyway, let's get Skarloey down onto the track. Let's talk performance, and also let's talk mechanism. Here we go. So there he is down onto the track, Skarloey looking absolutely amazing, and he really does look good. I mean, people who are big Skarloey fans or big Railway Series fans, they are going to love this because he really does look spot on. Anyway, I've already filmed the initial testing and I won't spoil that for you now. I'll show you that in just a second. After that, I took Skarloey apart because I think it's really important to look at the mechanism of these locos, to check that they're built properly, to check that they're built to last, and also to see how easy it is to service these things when the time for that comes around. So the base keeper plate on Skarloey is held on with 3 screws, and taking those screws out allows you to remove the base keeper quite easily. So all wheels on Skarloey pick up, which is great. The rear or non-driven wheels, I think, pick up through the axles, but they also have a wiper pickup on them too, so those pick up. And then the driving wheels have just a traditional wiper pickup touching each of those, so that we do indeed have all-wheel pickup, so that's great. There are proper bearings on every axle of the loco, again very, very good quality here, and it's just a single driven axle, as you can see. It's this one here that is geared. Now there is no springing, as I noted earlier on the rear wheels though, and this doesn't cause any performance issues or anything, so it's not a big complaint. But if there was a bit of springing on these wheels, that would allow all of Skarloey's driving wheels to sit onto the track a bit better, and I think that would have improved his pulling power. As it is with the design here, those rear wheels obviously take quite a lot of his weight, and because they're not driven, that weight is kind of wasted on them. He would be much more powerful if those rear wheels had some springing. Anyway, to remove the body, I left the second screw from the back out of the base keeper plate, because that's a body screw as well. And I also removed this little screw which is recessed right down underneath the base keeper plate. And with both of those out, I was able to ease the body off. And the body is a very impressive thing. This is one big metal piece with a few plastic detail parts stuck onto it, but it's very heavy and very good quality. And here's the chassis, which is very neat and tidy. As you can see, it's been well put together. There is no DCC socket in here, so for DCC users, you've got to find a way to go by yourself with this. There's no socket ready to go. Now I decided I would go a bit further with this review and take off this motor mounting bracket, or whatever you want to call it. Just 3 screws to hold that on, and removing that gave me a better look at the motor, which is not a coreless motor, interestingly. It performs very well, don't get me wrong, but not quite as well as a coreless motor, I think. You can see though that we do have a flywheel here, sure enough, in addition to the worm drive. So again, for such a small engine to have a flywheel like that, I'm mightily impressed by that. So it's a good mechanism. And then the back-to-back gauging came in about typically 7.3 to 7.4 millimeters back-to-back. That's pretty much where most N or 009 locos come in. So I do think he's got a good quality mechanism. It's built to last, and also this shows through in the performance. Speaking of performance then, let's jump back in time and let me show you how he ran. Right, moment of truth then. Talaclin, from what I remember, was an absolutely fantastic runner. So let's see if Skarloey is the same. Let's see if they are consistent with that. So let's pick a direction, give him some juice. Here we go. He is alive. And that was a pretty good start, wasn't it? To say he's never run before, that was literally his first run. He's just gone over the points. No stoppage there. Well done, Skarloey. Yep, straight away this looks really, really good. So let's have a look at the speed. So I would say he's relatively speedy, I suppose. That's half power. Let's do full power just for the lols. Oh, goodness, yeah. Didn't sound healthy, but yeah, quite fast. So he's speedy, but can he still do those realistic slow speeds for all his shunting work and all those fine manoeuvres you might want to do with him? Well, let's see. Turning up gently. Bear in mind he's not running yet. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, he did stop, but he saved himself. I didn't have to touch him. So I think I will do all of this again after running in, but he does seem to be fairly good. It's probably stopped on the dead zone there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Not very reliable at the moment, but that's sort of to be expected before he's been running. In fact, it's definitely not very reliable at all. There we go. But he was at the higher speeds. So he can crawl, but he's cutting out. Hopefully running in will fix that. So with that, off you go, Skarloey. Enjoy a nice run around the layout for 30 minutes in both directions. So there you have it then. The performance is looking really, really promising. He does seem able to crawl, but he's struggling to at the moment because he's cutting out. But usually, at least with these N-gauge locos, or 009 in this case, usually a bit of running in can fix that. So I'll leave him to run. Hopefully there won't be any issues. I'll come back a little bit later on. We'll do some more testing and we'll couple him up to some rolling stock to see how he gets on at the front of a train. And maybe I'll get Rheneas out and we'll let them run together. I think they'd both enjoy that. So I'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. Right, that is Skarloey fully run in. And now we're going to do some more testing to see what his performance is really like. I think I gave him the benefit of the doubt before. He was struggling and stopping a little bit at the crawl. Now that he's running, I'm hoping that will be improved. So let's have another look at the speed. Let me show you him at half power. There we go. So yeah, he's speedy, but as we've also seen, he's able to run more slowly, which is good. Is there torque here? Let's find out. I'll just put my finger on the back there. Up to 50. Yep, loads of torque. So no problem with that. That's very good. Moment of truth then. What is the crawl like? And I'll take him away from the dead zone of the point, so he's got a better chance. Let's turn him up very, very slowly. See how slow he can go now that all of the pickups have bedded in. Here we go. Oh, hard to get it into that sweet spot. Okay, so that seems to be about as slow as he can go. Seemed a little bit better. Well, a bit slower than that when I first tried him. Now he doesn't seem to be able to go quite as slow. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to get the... Whoa, blimey. I kept turning it up. Yeah, I'm struggling to get him to go as slow as that, but on the whole, he does seem to be more reliable now. He's not constantly stopping, is he? And over the points. Yeah, managed over the points all right. So, yeah, I would say same as the Fletcher Jennings, really. The performance is lovely, and he can do a good slow speed. I mean, that's very good. But some of these Bachmann Thomas locos, yes, in 009, but also in N scale, those really have been cracking crawlers. Skarloey, perhaps not quite as much, but yeah, he's all right. Anyway, in terms of haulage then, I've set up these little slate wagons. I think Skarloey prefers to do passenger work, is that fair to say? But in real life, on the Talaclyn Railway in Wales, originally that was a slate railway, so these are these sorts of wagons the real Skarloey, or Talaclyn, would have been hauling back in the day. So I'm going to... what direction are we in? There we go. I'm going to bring them in. Oops, and also derail them all. Well done, sausage fingers. Apologies for that. Right, I think we're on. Yep. I'm going to do this on the straight because trying to couple on a curve is pointless. Now they're very light wagons, so I assume Skarloey's just going to push them away, but I do want to try and test the coupling. Oh gosh. That really didn't go very well, did it? Let's see. Are they all at the right height? They're not actually. Is Skarloey's coupling drooping down a little bit? Yeah, maybe it is. Well, go on then. I'll hold this wagon in place because he did just push them away. And we'll try again. Maybe a little bit quicker. It's hard not to derail them. Not great then, is it, that? Let's flip him round. See if the front one does any better. Okay, trying again. Oh, wrong direction, silly me. Yeah, does seem to be a struggle, that. Right, let's get a different 009 wagon. Try and establish whether it's the loco's coupling or the coupling on that little Dinorwick wagon. Let's try this van I've got. I'm going to have Rheneas haul this van later on, but I think Skarloey can borrow it just for a second. Right, Skarloey, have a try. So yeah, the coupling does seem to be at the wrong height. Did that happen with the Fletcher Jennings? Let's see. Oh, how weird. I'll have to go and check the original review then, because I don't remember this being a problem before. Yep, okay, so the couplings are at the wrong height. That is not very good. So I'll have to couple them manually. Let's do that. Okay, together? Yes, together. Right, so with that, let's send him off around the track a little bit more slowly now, because I think 50% speed is a bit quick. So we'll go for 25. I think that looks pretty good. And as promised, there is Rheneas coupled up to that little southern van. I'll be honest with you, because that's the only other bit of 009 rolling stock I've got. But it does kind of match him in colour. So here we go. And he runs maybe even a bit slower than Skarloey does. So yeah, that coupling situation is weird. Rheneas has just coupled up to that van fine off camera, so his couplings are all right. It does seem to be the Skarloey coupling, which was struggling. And the Fletcher Jennings is the same, but again, I'll have to check that review. I don't remember having that problem, but it might be that I was a bit generous in that review if I didn't pick up on that coupling issue. But yeah, Skarloey was definitely struggling, but once coupled, everything seems to be all right, so that's not a problem. I also forgot to mention during running in, I did test Skarloey over the points because I know people like to see how locos perform over points, and he was absolutely perfect. I did it at half speed to begin with, and that was perfect, not a single problem with that. And then I did it again at a much higher speed, maximum speed in fact, and he was still perfect. So yeah, say what you want about the lack of a sprung rear axle, he is perfectly reliable on the track, which is very, very good. So yeah, very, very enjoyable, beautiful loco. Lovely to have a Skarloey available in 00 scale, which seems weird because it runs on N scale track, but it is 00 scale, or maybe HO, not really sure. and overall they've done a really lovely job with this. So I'm pretty happy. It's a bit too expensive for what it is, but apart from that, yeah, it's a lovely, lovely loco. And now then, let's have some ratings for Bachmann's Skarloey. And overall, I think this is a really good job. I've enjoyed looking at him. So at the level of detail, I've given 3.5 star, which is higher than the score I gave to the Talclin locomotive. I think that's because the relative simplicity of this design is better suited to a Thomas and Friends character than it was a supposedly realistic model of a real-life locomotive. So on the plus side, the face I think has actually been done pretty well. The paintwork, looking at photos of Skarloey from the TV series, looks to be spot on. Colours nailed, all of the lining and all of the different details picked out are exactly right as far as I could say. We've got loads of lovely little detail parts, such as the pipework and the whistle, beautifully moulded whistle. Yeah, it looks really, really good. A few things that let it down: no detail in the cab. Maybe that's prototypical for Skarloey. I'm not marking it down for that, but I suspect a bit of cab detail would not have gone amiss with this. Moulded handrails though, that is a big one. They don't stand out from the body as they do in the show, so that's a shame. We've got the plastic crosshead, which just doesn't look great on the side of the loco. You can tell looking at it that it's made of plastic, and it gives the loco more of a cheaper look, which it shouldn't have at the prices it costs. Also, the windows of the cab aren't great. They don't have any glazing on them. They don't look quite like they do in the show. So there's a few small issues with this. Nothing too major, but a few things to bear in mind. Performance then generally is really, really good, but there's a few things I've had to mark it down for. So first of all, the crawl isn't the best. It's okay, and it's acceptable, and it's fine. You can do some useful shunting with him, but I have seen locos with a coreless motor do a better slow speed performance than this. The other thing is the couplings. The couplings seem to be at the wrong height to be useful. They droop down, and I've tried this on the front and the back coupling. It's the same. I've tried it on all of the 009 rolling stock I've got, which is admittedly not much, but I've not had this issue with other locos. I've not had this issue with Rheneas. I think it is the Skarloey design. And the same thing happened, I've just checked my old review, the same thing happened with the Talclin locomotive, but I didn't seem to mark it down for that in the performance category, so it got away lightly there. I've been a bit generous. I am going to knock it off a star for that today though, so yeah, 3 star on performance. Pulling power I wasn't able to measure, but it's okay. The loco's very heavy at 64 grams, he's got plenty of power. I do wish though that the rear non-driven wheels had a bit of springing to them, because if they did, then the loco could sit down on the track a little bit better and all 4 of the driving wheels would be on the rails. That would improve reliability even more, and it would improve tractive effort. Otherwise though, the massive weight of the loco does offset that quite nicely, so it's not a weak loco. The mechanism then, I've given 4 star. Yeah, this is a great job considering how tiny he is. The quality of the mechanism is really cracking. So, proper bearings on the driving axles, pickups on all wheels, whether that's wipers on the drivers or the axle base pickups on the rear wheels. We've got a good quality motor, perhaps not quite as good as a coreless motor, but it still runs great, and it's got a flywheel on board, which is again very impressive given the size of this. On the downside though, coreless motors do perform better in locos like this, I would say, and there's no DCC socket on board, which is a bit of a pity for any modern modeler wanting to run this on digital. So again, it doesn't get 5 star, but no major complaints here. The quality though, I've given 5 star, which I think is perhaps a bit generous given the plastic crossheads and stuff, but I feel like I've penalised for that in the detail section, so I am going to give the quality a 5. Why? Because the loco's almost all metal. Again, 64 grams for something this size is very impressive. The paint job really has been done well too. Lots of attention to detail, no issues or errors in it. Yeah, it's been a very nicely painted and a very nicely built locomotive. Overall, I do think this deserves 5 star. Value for money then. So, lots of prices to quote here. The RRP is £140.75, which I think is ridiculous. It's a bit less ridiculous than the Fletcher Jennings version, the realistic version, which was £10 more, but it's still a lot. At the retailers, we're talking about £120, which is better, but again, still pricey. I paid £110 for this from Tootly Thomas, which again is better still, but for the Talclin locomotive, when I imported that from the States, I only paid about £82 for that, which is, I think, a lot more like what this locomotive is worth. Plus it demonstrates that a loco just like this can be sold, presumably at a profit, for a much lower price than I paid. So 3-star is the best I can do. It's very, very expensive for what it is, which is a pity because I think that's going to limit the number of people wanting to buy something like this, which is a pity because, as we've seen, he's been beautifully done. So price is something I wish Bachmann would work on and do better at so that more people can enjoy these beautiful models. But it is what it is, 3-star for me. Overall then, that is a score of 7.33 out of 10, or a grade of C. A few points for improvement then, a bit more detail, maybe a detailed cab, separate handrails, that kind of thing. Better performance, perhaps a better motor so that he crawls better, and obviously couplings that are functional without intervention. These seem to be quite basic things. So, can I recommend Skarloey? I think yes, at the right price. Don't be paying the RRP. If you pay £140 for this, I think you're paying more than he's worth, quite frankly. But if you can get him for 110 like I did, or if you're very lucky, even less in a future sale or something like that, then I would say well not. You know, he's a good quality loco, the mechanism is clearly built to last, and it's also clear that somebody at Bachmann has put a lot of time into looking at Skarloey from the show and making sure this model looks just like him, and they have done a really good job of that. So if you're a narrow gauge fan, if you're a fan of the Railway series, or if you just like Skarloey and his friends, this is definitely one I can recommend. And if you are interested, I will pop an affiliate link down in the description. But again, pay attention to price, make sure you're shopping around to get the best price. For now though, I'll say thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know what you'd like to see next in this range and I will see what I can do. But for now, we shall leave it there. Thank you again for watching and I'll catch you on the next one. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.